Hello, how's everybody doing today? I'm going to start with website planning. This is going to be a fundamental portion of the class. Is when you develop a website design, you have to have a plan to how it's going to lead people through the whole website to get the information that they need as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So the essential element, usually the first step, is to plan out how the site is going to be structured, where it's going, what pages are going to be on it. That will give you a good idea as far as how to design this particular site. So we're going to we're dealing with user-focused design, a design that puts the user ahead of stylistic design treatments or gratuitous use of technology. Is must start with a plan. All right, we're dealing with people who go to a site, they're looking for something specific, and you have to be able to use the site to get to the information that they need as quickly as they can. So it has to have some kind of user interaction, and it must be efficient. You have to the planning of the project is the phases of design that include research and discovery, content inventory, site mapping, wireframing, usability mapping, and prototyping and design concepting. All right, coming up with a map is the essential first element of it. Is coming up with some kind of map how it's going to lead people through it. So, but you have to do the research. You have to find out what the client actually needs. What are they looking for? What pages are they going to want on the site? What information do they want to communicate? All that type of stuff. So you have to do your research, which is the same thing as what you would do in like regular graphic design. Is like you have to discover what the actual client wants for their site and how it's going to best lead or sell somebody on their product or service. All right, so developing a plan based on research into the client's goals, analysis of the landscape in which a site will exist. All right, it has to come with a requirements document, a project timeline, and a creative brief. When does the site have to go to? I've been in some situations where a client has wanted to develop a landing page that had to be out for a certain trade show booth. So what they could do is like if when they're on the floor selling to somebody, they could lead somebody to a particular site and track where people are coming from to look at that. It's an essential part of marketing. You have to understand where people are coming from and how did they get there. You don't have an understanding of that, then marketing is just thrown out the window. The asset inventory, all right, organization of images, content, code libraries, etc. All right, organization in folders, and certain areas of the site, and this is relaying a lot towards the background, the code elements, the images that are going to be placed in there, the code files. All right, stuff like that all has to be organized. In graphic design, we can essentially have things all over our computer. In website design, you have to have things in a very organized manner. Things need to be placed in certain folders, name certain things, in order to actually have it work very well in website design. All right, you have to maintain organization as much as possible, which leads to the file organization and naming things properly. When we're dealing with naming files, things should not have, like file names should not really have any capital letters or spaces, for instance. Usually their spaces are replaced by either dashes or underscores in the file name. But you don't want to have any kind of spaces in there, because what it does is it adds in a piece of code called %20, which basically is a code for a space. And you don't want to have to lead people to something that has that in it. All right. Much less search engines looking at something like that doesn't read it the same way, as it would a hyphen or an underscore. All right, mapping out a site is essential. Limited number of choices the user sees to 7 items. And what we refer to that is that you just don't want to overwhelm somebody with the amount of information that's on there. If you absolutely have to, that's what a search bar is for. But you want to limit it to, as far as navigation goes, you want to limit it to at least, or at the most, 7 particular items. 7 items across, and then you could basically drop down from there, drop down elements. All right. Any more than that just tends to get really confusing beyond that. All right. Information architecture. Define a site using site maps, taxonomies, labeling systems, and wireframes. All right. Information architecture. It's like, again, leading somebody through the particular site to get to the information that they need. Site maps is a system schematic for a site showing pages and the linked relationships among them. All right, you have to give somebody a site map as far as what does that mean, and I'll go ahead and show that here. All right, basically what it does is it breaks down into how the information is laid out on the actual site. All right, for this first part, we got home. Home is usually home is usually the first page that shows up when you go to a site. That is the portion of the site that you see. All right, if you see home here, all right, and then it breaks down to community profile, business resources, properties, maps, newsroom, and about us. Those are the actual first level navigation elements. All right, when you see a navigation site on there, you would see in this particular site here, you would see community profile, business resources, properties, maps, newsroom, and about us. That's all you would see. And then when you roll over, let's say, community profile, you would see the breakdown of all the other elements below it. So that is where, this is how it breaks down as far as a site map goes. And then it can break down from there if it needs to go to certain areas. The gray up at the top refer to pretty much like elements up towards the top, which usually are seen on every page. All right, maybe there's a button for search, or a search bar, or a proposal login, or email sign up, or a simple contact us button up there at the top. Here's another one. Breaks down again from the upper right corner, or upper left corner where it says home, breaks down into web design, SEO, usability, graphic design, portfolio, and contact us. Again, that is the first level navigation. Those are the elements that you would see at the top with the navigation. Anything in yellow below it refer to the actual drop-down elements. If you were rolling your cursor on top of, let's say, usability, you would see principles and methods, user research, website effectiveness, website efficiency, website utility, website learnability, and website memorability. That. All right, you'd see that breakdown in the on the site there. All right, wireframe refers to the blueprints that map the individual pages. All right, we dealt with site maps, which is the breakdown of how the site is actually built. And here we deal with wireframe, which is kind of like the bare bones of a website before it's designed. So if we look at the comparison between CNN and this, what is called a wireframe, you see that the wireframe just shows a bunch of gray boxes as to where elements would go. That is referring or taking on what CNN's site is like. All right, it's the bare bones, the structure for it. This is a nice thing to show a client at the very beginning to show how it would actually be structured on their actual page before you start throwing graphics or colors or anything into it. This is how it would be structured. Another wireframe, just to kind of like show you how it would lay out in like a thumbnail version. Then there's usability diagrams, which are user flow diagrams combine sitemaps and a wireframe to plan out a specific action a user might take. All right, so you see the sitemap dealt with how the actual site was structured. The usability diagrams deal with how does a user interact with it? How is it specifically supposed to happen in usability? So if we look over at the black dot on the left side, all right, it points to login. Login is the element where you go to the page and then you're going to put in a username and password. All right, there are 3 directions that it can take. All right, basically, if they don't log in, let's say login required. If they do log in, all right, basically, or let's say they log in and then they register. Registering would bring it to this particular level, then to, or if they error it out, go back to register, or go down here and it says send an activation email or registration complete. All right, activation email would go up here, activate, and then log in. This is how an interaction would take place. All right. So another type of thing is that there may be 5 different entry points. Or you click on that, would go into like a login page or sign up and log in. All right, where you sign up, log in, you can do the forget password. There's more to this than there is. But you see the idea here is to be able to track what the user is going to do when they are actually developing the site or going through the site. Then there's developing prototypes, which are working models of the site, features or functionality that help a developer and designer work out final details. All right, prototypes are very, very kind of like, well, they kind of like work as like wireframes in a sense, where you would develop a wireframe and then interact with it. Or it would be a working model, just wouldn't have any of the graphics and textures and stuff like that in it. And interact with it to see how it will interact throughout the whole process. Makes it a lot quicker when there's not graphics that have to download or anything like that. And then you can develop mood boards, which are providing the overall feel of the site design. Type, imagery, colors, etc. All right, mood boards tend to give an overall look to the actual site. Whether it's like colors, textures, images that are being used, even down to the fonts that are being used for the site. Another type of mood board here. All right. And that's it for now. So basically, that is about how we deal with, or what the very first steps in website design take, is not necessarily building the site, but developing a plan to implement it and how it would actually interact with the user. All right, so that's it for now. I will see you later.